What's in your glass to start, Mads?
Ja, vi er 52, der ser med nu. Velkommen til jer. Vi lader lige streamet løbe en 5-6 minutter mere, så folk de kan nå at komme på og finde livestreamet. Så er jeg og Zan klar til at byde velkommen til jer. Så vi giver den lige en 5-6 minutter mere, så vender vi tilbage. Og så skål til dig, Morten. Og Jakob sidder klar i Aarhus C, så er vi 2. Falster representer. Det er dejligt. Og Joshua har opfundet et nyt hashtag. We love Mads. Vi må se, om det trender i løbet af aftenen. We love Zan, det er jo en klassiker. Moderne klassiker. Går der ikke lang tid, så er vi klar til at byde velkommen. Vi giver den lige de sidste par minutter. Jeg glæder mig til at smage det her rom her. Se, at tallet det stiger en lille smule lige nu, kan jeg se. Så vi giver den lige en 30 sekunder, så begynder vi så småt at gå i gang. Ja, Jens, nogle fordele skal der jo være ved at sidde på den her ende her. Nå, så tror jeg godt, vi så småt kan begynde at trille lidt stille i gang. Goddag, eller god aften, og velkommen til. Mit navn er Mads Heitmann, og jeg skal være vært ved den her romsmagning her i dag. Den her digitale live romsmagning. Den er lidt anderledes, end den plejer at være, fordi normalt så plejer jeg at have min gode kompagnon Lauke til at sidde lige her. Ham har vi skiftet ud, og så har vi fået en klog mand ind fra Jamaica. Og Zan han sidder ude i kulissen og venter på at komme ind og fortælle en masse om jamaicansk rum, og selvfølgelig særligt Worthy Park Rums. I har alle sammen fået tilsendt sådan et fint smagesæt, som jeg sidder med her, med 8 forskellige rum. Der er nogle gamle kendinge, der er nogle nyheder, og så er der faktisk også noget, som slet ikke er i handelen overhovedet, så man kun kan smage på den her smagning her. Det vil Zan selvfølgelig gå meget mere i dybden med, og jeg kan sige, jeg glæder mig utrolig meget til at smage på det. Der er en del af det, jeg ikke har smagt før, og det synes jeg ser ufattelig spændende ud. Jeg er jo kæmpe stor fan af jamaicansk rum, og særligt Worthy Park Rums laver noget rigtig, rigtig lækkert. Så det bliver virkelig, virkelig lækkert, og det glæder jeg mig utrolig meget til. Lige lidt praktik her, inden vi starter, og inden vi slår over i engelsk, fordi Zan han snakker jo af gode grunde ikke dansk. Men så skal jeg fortælle, at rækkefølgen i pakken, den er ikke, som vi drikker den i aften. Så Zan vil sætte jer ind i, hvad vi skal drikke hvornår, og så skal man lige finde den rom, man skal hælde i glasset på det givne tidspunkt. På halvvejen vil der være en kort pause. Vi antager, at det kommer til at tage mellem 2 og 2,5 timer, alt efter hvor mange spørgsmål der vil være undervejs. Og ja, det er jo så nemlig det. Der kan nemlig stilles spørgsmål undervejs. Og hvis du har et spørgsmål til Zan eller til jeg, så kan du smide et spørgsmål ned i kommentarfeltet. Om det er på YouTube eller på Facebook live, så smid det i kommentarfeltet, så samler jeg løbende til bunke, og så kaster vi en masse spørgsmål efter Zan, når han har tid i hans præsentation. Udover det, så skal jeg sige, at vi undervejs også kører en konkurrence om en rom, en Worthy Park Port og en bog. Så altså en vinder en rom, og en vinder en bog. Og det er ligesom det plejer at være. Man skal lægge et billede op på Instagram eller Facebook, så vi kan se, hvordan I hygger ude i stuerne. Og så skal I huske at hashtag det Rumhatten.dk. Mere information om det der kommer der også i pausen. Når vi holder de 10 minutters pause, så vil der være helt præcis instrukser for, hvordan man deltager i konkurrencen. Så ingen stress herfra. Godt. Det skal huskes at siges, at hvis der er nogen, der ikke kan være med i aften, hvis I har en kammerat eller et eller andet, som ikke kunne deltage, men som har smagsættet, så kan man se romsmagningen her på Facebook og selvfølgelig også på YouTube efterfølgende. Der vil videoerne uploades og ligge permanent efter smagningen. Godt. I think I will switch over to English right now, and this being a masterclass, we definitely need a master, and yeah, I will introduce the rum master himself, Zan Kong from Worthy Park Estate Rums. How are you, Zan?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I am great as well. Looking forward to trying all of these rums.
Yeah, me too. Well,
Yeah?
not trying them, but trying them with you and everybody else out there on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, and Zan is the brand ambassador for Worthy Park Rums tonight. You once were the export manager, but now you have a new job title, and it's you told me it's a commercial manager for spirits.
So let me button up. Commercial sales for spirits is my new position.
All right. Buttoned up.
Which is pretty much do everything else the same, except now I have an office at the estate, and I overlook the local market as well.
All right. So no more bottle washing for you.
Exactly. Because I didn't have enough bottles in my sink before.
And you are right now in Jamaica? Is that correct?
I am. I'm in Kingston. I'm on the road doing a bunch of stuff today, so I had to call somebody to borrow their house to set up and stream from here.
Great, and thank you for being with us tonight. It's a huge pleasure and huge honor, and I can't wait to dive in these amazing rums.
Oh, yeah.
Should we just get cracking or what, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, just for everybody out there, we have a lot of rums to go through, so I'm gonna take you on a journey of Worthy Park, and just kind of where we've come from, what we're doing, from sugar cane to sugar production to the distillery, and I'll sprinkle in the rums throughout, just to kind of spread it out for everybody, so it's not too crazy.
Great.
Yeah, so whenever you're ready,
Is it correct that it might be a good idea to have 2 glasses?
1, 2, 9 glasses, maybe?
9 glasses.
No, really, and everybody, I just have to say, enjoy responsibly, and you don't feel like you need to drink every one of them, because I do want you to make it to the end of the 9 glasses. Great.
Yeah. Well, should we post the presentation, and I can give you the stage fully?
Yeah. I will start it, and you just let me know when to go.
Yeah, hit it, man.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for that introduction, and again, thank you everybody for joining in on this Friday night in Denmark. And I see there's a couple people. Saw someone from Netherlands tuning in, and from Belgium as well. So, thank you all so much. Mads and I were saying, one of the highlights, not the highlights, one of the positive things that came out of this pandemic is that we've been forced to almost do these virtual tastings. But, to get 100 plus 150 people in a room to do a tasting is next to impossible. So I'm really grateful that we can do it virtually, and that, between 1423 and Mads, they arrange for all these samples to get out to you guys. So that's really grateful for that as well. But let's jump right into it. And Jamaica, for all of you that have never been here, which is probably most of you, this is our flag, which we fly very proudly, and you'll see kind of every Jamaican loves their flag. So it's everywhere when we're traveling across the globe, and the green is representing the lush, fertile soil of the land. The black is for the strength and resiliency of our people, and the gold is, for the warmth and the sun that we have here. But this is our flag for our little island, which we love so dearly. Now, where we're located, this is where we are. We are the largest English-speaking island in the Caribbean, and we are just from what I say, for a straight shot from Copenhagen to Kingston is about 8,361 kilometers. So quite a bit away, but closer in spirit, I guess, than distance. But this is where we're located, right south of Cuba. You can see Cuba from the north coast, and about an hour and a half from Miami, Florida. Now, we're going to jump right in with the first rum, just so you don't have to listen to me talk without having something in your glass. Obviously, I will go through a lot more of the production as we get into it, but the first one we're going to start out with is our Rumbar Gold. We launched this one in 2014, and it is aged a minimum of 4 years. Key to note for Jamaica, whenever you hear a Jamaican rum give an age statement, it always refers to the youngest drop of juice in the glass. So even though there's older rum that's blended into this, the only age statement I can give as being a Jamaican rum is 4 years old. All of the aging is in ex-bourbon American white oak, and all of our rums are 100% pot still distilled, which we'll get into later. And another key point just to add about all of our rums out of Jamaica is there's no sugar added by law and just by technique that we believe in at Worthy Park. But we do add a little bit we are allowed to, and we do add a little bit of caramel to our aged rums for color consistency. And then obviously when we get to our 109 proof a little later on, we add a little bit more caramel than that. But this is one of our workhorses. Feel free, if you have it in your glass to spend some time with it. This is my go-to, I should say, in terms of our portfolio and what's poured at my house. It's got a lot of that unaged raw funkiness that you expect from Jamaican rum, but it does have that barrel influence to it as well. Great in a simple drink such as rum and coke or even a planter's punch. But yeah, cheers. I won't spend too much time on tasting notes because I do think they are very subjective, and we do get a lot of different feedback from people. But for me, always one of our signature notes from Worthy Park is we're very heavy on that overripe banana, and as well as you get on the palate as well as we have this almost brininess, olive brininess that is, I feel like one of our signature Worthy Park notes as well. So to you all, cheers. And enjoy. And I'm going to, obviously drink at your own pace, everybody, but I'm going to jump right into our next one, which is our Worthy Park Single Estate Reserve. So our first products that we launched were under the Rumbar line, but we always knew that we wanted to have a Worthy Park line, just given the history and the heritage that we have at Worthy Park here. So this is the first rum we launched under the Worthy Park brand name, and we launched it in 2017 into 2018. So it is our flagship for this brand. And it is, again, aged in ex-bourbon American white oak, and this is a blend of our rums between 6 to 10 years old. When we launched this one, and we were going for more of a profile than we were for a specific age statement. So we really wanted to showcase, excuse me, how beautiful a pot still only rum ages, and we wanted to create kind of that iconic, classically aged, classic pot still Jamaican rum because there really isn't a lot of Jamaican rums on the market that are 100% pot still. You start to see them coming out a little bit more now, but we really wanted to create something with consistency and that could be really a flagship for our company. And this one, we bottled it at 45% ABV. I think our rums do very well at that ABV. And again, a lot of the feedback we got has been very positive on it. For example, Spirit of the Year, we got for Whiskey Exchange, and we're continually, getting some high praises for this one. And for me, I like to drink it just neat or on the rocks, but I mean, it's great in a cocktail if you want to do, if you want to do an elevated cocktail, whether it's an old fashioned or even a daiquiri on this, Worthy Park Single Estate Daiquiri it's fantastic as well. So, again, drop your comments and your feedback, any of you that have any tasting notes that you want to share. I know Mads is monitoring because all I'm looking at is my presentation. So ask any questions and he can jump in if there's anything to elaborate with. But cheers. Now, just dipping back a little bit, Jamaica as an island, the first inhabitants of the island were the Tainos, and they came to Jamaica from the northern part of what is now South America, around Venezuela area. They inhabited the island, and they, as you can see here, a lot culturally, they had they painted their faces with a lot of the natural dyes from the environment. Gold adornments, they had a lot of gold on them as well. Very reliant on fishing. And actually, to this day, many English words that we have in our language derive from the Taino language, including a couple of them here: canoe, cassava, maroon, hammock, hurricane, mangrove, tobacco, all, again, indigenous to the Tainos that were here in Jamaica. And they lived a relatively, stable existence until about 1494 when Mr. Columbus arrived with the Spaniards. This was his second voyage, and he was in Cuba. And as the story goes, was told about a land to the south, which he thought in the translation that they were saying that there's a lot of gold in Jamaica. So he sailed to Jamaica and captured the island for the Spaniards. They didn't really do a lot to the island because there was no gold. So they had a small settlements here. But aside from his crew that he left on the island, the first, colonizing Spaniards came in 1509 with Juan de Esquivel, and he was appointed governor of the island from Queen Isabel. And that was the same year that cane actually was introduced to the island from Haiti. And approximately 80 to 90%, it's estimated, of the Tainos died within about 30 years or so of the Spaniards arriving. So they had the island from 1494 until the British came in 1655, sailing under Cromwell's army. They sailed from the UK, from London to Barbados, and they were planning on trying to capture Hispaniola from the Spaniards, which again was a very rich and bountiful land. They basically got their asses kicked in Hispaniola, and instead of going home empty-handed, they sailed to Jamaica, where they landed, and really and truly, it was a very easy capture of the island. There was only about 2,500 Spaniards on the island at the time, and the British forces came with about 7,500 people. So they kind of just marched right in. The Spanish governor at the time and the Spaniards, they freed a lot of the enslaved Tainos and Africans that were here, and they went into the mountains and actually became what is known as the Maroons, which were, the free people of Jamaica. Now, so now the country is under British rule. Sir Thomas Modiford came over in 1664. He came from Barbados, and Jamaica is about 27 times the size of Barbados, and it was lush and fertile soil, and he wanted to create the plantocracy like he did in Barbados in Jamaica. So that began Jamaica's rise as a sugar plantation island for the British Crown. This is just an interesting map of the island from 1671. So you can see down here is where Kingston is in the kind of southeast. I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but that's where Kingston is. And you can see how all the development really started from the south and expanded. And right now, Worthy Park would be right around here on this map. All right, we were a British colony until, and Jamaica remained one of the crowns of the British jewel until, one of the jewels of the British crown, I should say, until, slavery and emancipation happened in 1834, and that kind of led to the downfall of sugar, helped contribute to it, one of the factors. But Jamaica officially got its independence in 1962, August 6th. And we've been a free country, independent country ever since. All right, let's jump right back into the tastings before I go on any farther. And sorry, I really love that single estate reserve. Now, the first special cask series that we're going to play with here is the Port 2010. So a little background on these. Josh from 1423, who is our partner out there in Denmark, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, about 4 years ago now, he approached us and said, we should do some work with, wine casks, the next wine casks. And, we looked at it and said, boy, it's not something we have ever done. and it's really expensive to get these casks to Jamaica. So what we agreed on was that the first set, and which all of you are probably familiar with, that came out, were first aged in Jamaica for about 4 or 5 years, and then we shipped them over to the 1423 warehouses in Denmark, and the secondary aging was done there. And with the success, thank you to everyone out there, but the success of like the Oloroso, the Marsala, the previous ports, and Quattro Vins, and all the other releases that we did, we decided, all right, we can take a chance and basically convince my directors at Worthy Park that it was worth the investment to bring in some barrels. So 2018, we started bringing some into Jamaica, and what we did with the first set were port and Madeira, and we put all different rums in them, aged rums in them. For this one in particular, the Port 2010, it was distilled in 2010, put in ex-bourbon barrels for 8 years, and then we dumped them into the ex-Ruby Port barrels for 2 years, and we bottled them last year. Now, we did bottle them at 45%, for a variety of reasons. We just thought that, it worked well at that ABV, and we wanted to get something to appeal to a wide cross section of the spirits market. It is bottled, diluted, obviously, but it is non-chill filter. There's no additives, and for these, there is no color adjustment as either. So what you're seeing is the true color as it came out of the port barrels last year, and these are the first double matured age rums at Worthy Park. And out of all the distilleries currently in operation in Jamaica, these are the first to come out that were 100% distillery age from start to finish, from start to bottling. So we're really proud of it, and I hope you all enjoy it as well. And lastly, I will say we have a lot more port and Madeira and Cognac and Calvados coming your way over the next couple of years. But do enjoy these. I hope you like it.
How many bottles does there exist of this particular version?
Oh, we did for the EU. We did three barrels total, right, diluted down to 45%, and we did some for the US market as well.
Okay.
So, Denmark, you guys got majority of them. I'm not sure where Josh has sold them to, but put him on the spot. But there's definitely the lion's share for you guys out there. But enjoy.
I think it's very, very nice. I think it has a lovely fruitiness, almost red berries and stuff like that.
Yeah. And Matt, feel free to jump in with the tasting notes if you like.
People are asking us to slow a bit down with the pouring of the rum.
All right.
Maybe we can skip not skip, but save the Madeira for a little later.
Yeah, that's no problem. That's no problem at all. I'm here for you guys, so I'll slow down.
Great.
I do want you to enjoy them as well.
The port finish.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun to bring these barrels into Jamaica, and we really, what we're trying to do at Worthy Park is, we only have one still. I mean, it's a very big still, but in terms of producing a variety of different types of rum at Worthy Park, I think we've been pretty successful from the distillation and fermentation side in producing a lot of different marks. And kind of the evolution of where we're going as a distillery is we want to get more into other ways to kind of revolutionize Jamaican rum and what we're doing at Worthy Park. And we thought that, experimenting with different barrels, different wine barrels was a good start for us. So, for example, with these Port and Madeira, we had put everything from, some of our oldest rum in there, some of our, some fresh unaged rum in there. But we also started aging our Worthy Park Single Estate Reserve, which you tried before. We did that blend, and then we put that in barrels too, which is really cool because we've never, typically at Worthy Park, we don't age blends. So we always age single distillates. Our whole warehouse, 10,000 barrels, is pretty much all single distillate aging. So when we did the blend for Worthy Park Single Estate Reserve and we aged that, we said, we don't know how it's going to turn out. It's a big investment, but we think it could be cool. And, we think there's a lot of options for us to really kind of shake things up in terms of the Jamaican rum market.
How many different types of barrels do you have on the warehouse right now?
So right now we have these Port of Madeira, and we have cognac and Calvados as well.
Okay, and regular bourbon, of course.
And obviously majority are ex-bourbon, and we get those from Brown-Forman out in the States. So it's really, mostly that's where we've historically got them from.
So you don't want to experiment with new fresh oak from the States?
It's funny you mention that.
All right.
Because I actually, if you ever look at my random notebook and and you can decipher the notes I have, one of the things that we've been approached a lot about lately is people wanting to buy ex rum casks to age, whether it's beer or whiskey or just other spirits, to kind of do what we're doing, but the other way. And, I'm like, man, we can do that, but it's still, ex-bourbon, then ex-rum. And we were actually just talking about it the other day. I was like, wouldn't it be cool to get some, complete virgin casks and, not only age our rums in them to have some rum to drink, but also have the option of, further selling those completely seasoned worthy part casks to, other distilleries or other, spirit producers. So.
Yeah, and benefit from the communication and the marketing within that setup.
Yeah, I think it could be cool, man. And we did last year. I believe it was only in Belgium, but we did a virgin cask finish. So it was like we with 4223. So we took some of the ex-bourbon cask rum and then put it into virgin cask after. And, to be quite honest, I was like, oh, yeah, it should be all right. But if any of you had got your hands on those bottles, it was really, really, really surprisingly good.
Yeah. We actually had a question regarding the caramel. I can't find it right now. Or can I? A guy asked if isn't there sugar in caramel? I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, a little bit. I can touch on it. So yeah, there is. What we're using it's a spirit caramel. So the way that it's manufactured, it doesn't have any of that residual sweetness in it. If you taste a spirit caramel that we use for coloring, it's really, and percentage wise of a bottle of rum, it's like percent of a percent that is added into it to get the color. But if you taste it raw and it's the way we get it before we put it in a bottle, it's almost bitter. So it doesn't have any of the residual sugars in it. And Mads, you may be able to expand even a little bit more on that, but yeah, there's no sugar that comes through in it.
No sweetening, no flavor. Yeah. Only visual.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's a very commercial reason why we do it, for consistency, because the general consumers, and I'm speaking outside of the real rum enthusiasts and the rum geeks out there, if they pick up a bottle of Rumbar Gold on the shelf, they're expecting it to be, when they look at the shelf, for everything to be the same color. If they go back 2 months later to pick up another bottle, they want it to be exactly the same. And it's just kind of the way that the consumer market is for us here and abroad. So it's why we do it. The cool thing about barrel aging and the science and the magic behind it is it really is a crapshoot of how rum is going to turn out. You have an idea when you put the rum in the barrels and you think you know what's going to happen or what you want to happen, but really and truly it's an experiment every time you put rum in a barrel. And you can take two barrels that are exact same raw distillate, aged the exact same, right beside each other in the same warehouse, and the color may be different between the two. So our goal with the use of a spirit caramel is just to really make everything consistent and to the same spec every time.
Yeah, to avoid any confusion.
Exactly.
The consumers.
Exactly. exactly. And it will be quite interesting because when we do get to the 109, you can see what it looks like to add a lot more caramel in it to get the color.
It's almost black.
Yeah, but you know what's really funny when you look at Mads, you have a bottle there, but when you look at the sample bottle, how light it is compared to when you look at the 1 liter bottle. It's a really good visual as to how the size of a bottle really impacts the color as well, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So you said you want to hold off on the Madeira for a little bit?
Yeah, just hold on for that for about 10 minutes, and then we can do that before we go on. Yeah. Yeah,
no problem. And all right, so we talked a little bit about Jamaican history, and I think it's really interesting to note that if you follow the trajectory of sugar estates and sugar producers in Jamaica, in the mid 1800s there was almost 650 different producers, pretty much all of them making rum, but rum was always made as a commodity. So much like sugar, much like just the way that the system was set up. We made sugar in bulk and shipped it off and sold it off in volumes, and the value add was always elsewhere. With the molasses from sugar production, pretty much every distillery, every sugar factory was making rum, but that rum was almost a side business to sugar, which was the main business. And that obviously changed over time, but that's also why you don't see a lot of old Jamaican brands, because rum was always typically made as a commodity, and the brands were usually outside of Jamaica, aside from Myers and obviously Ray and Nephew that have a huge history here. Most other brands were owned outside of the island. As you come to modern day, right now, there's only 2 sugar factories in Jamaica in operation right now. Us and one called Frome out on the western side of the island. But when I started with Worthy Park 6 years ago, there was 6 sugar factories, and they've all we're literally the last 2 standing in the sugar business in Jamaica. There's still 6 distilleries, but we're the only distillery with a working sugar factory still. But all that to say, going back and forth on you. In 1670, Worthy Park was founded, and it was originally 840 acres of land. And Lieutenant Francis Price, he came to the island with Cromwell's army, and they captured the land. And the people that came with Cromwell, they were obviously all given land and from the British Crown. And he was a successful farmer already, just south of. About 20 kilometers south of Worthy Park, he had some farm properties. And then when Sir Thomas Modiford, who I mentioned earlier, one of his first proclamations that he put in place was any male, free male above 18 could patent as much land as they could foreseeably harvest within, I think it was about the next 6 months. And Lieutenant Francis Price, he came across Worthy Park, the Luidas Vale where Worthy Park was founded, and he patented 840 acres of land. And at the time, there was this area where Worthy Park was home to a lot of the Maroons, and Juan Diablo, who was escaped Spanish he was an enslaved African who was freed by the Spanish. He was one of the Maroons that put up a lot of the resistance to the British. And he actually ended up striking a deal with the British where he basically turned on the Spaniards and was able to, I guess, saw the writing on the wall that the British were here to stay. And he gave up the resistance and joined the British. And it was when that happened was one of the catalysts for the Spanish to basically throw in the towel with the resistance that they were putting up and officially leave the island, because up until that they were still fighting, and not on a large scale, but they're still putting up a resistance to the British. Now, the original 840 acres that Francis Price patented, to this day, are still some of the most fertile acreage in the Lattice Vale. And so it's really interesting that, that had happened. I don't know if it was complete foresight or just luck that he had, but Worthy Park remained at his family pretty much until the early 1800s. Sorry, the mid 1800s. So his family has had Worthy Park for the longest out of the 4 families that have owned Worthy Park since its inception. Now, 1720 was our first commercial sugar cultivation at the estate, and we've actually continued it every year since 1720. So 351 years now straight, we've done sugar. 1741 was our first rum production ever at Worthy Park, and that predates any currently distilling distillery on the island. So we weren't the first ever in Jamaica to distill, but based on historical records, which is actually up there on the top, you can see in 1741 we did 8,200 pots of sugar and 3,000 gallons of rum. And funny enough, the only reason that we have that record is because a year before, the owner of Worthy Park passed away and left the land to his sons, and they were miners. So the government said if you were a miner or an absentee farm owner, you had to make that declaration every year. So that's the only reason we had it. So it could have been before then. I believe it was just based on doing sugar for the previous 21 years, but that's the first actual record that we have. Coming now to the 1900s, Frederick Clark, who is Gordon, who's our CEO now, that's his great-grandfather. So he was from the western side of the island, but he was working in the industry, in the sugar industry, and he would basically find distressed sugar factories, and he would basically try to get them to a point where they could be sold. Just again, at that time, it was really a mass exodus of sugar estates. And he came across Worthy Park and saw potential, and he bought it from J.V. Calder, who for about 44,000 pounds at the time, which with inflation is about, it works out to about 3-point-something million or something like that with inflation. But since then, it's been in the Clark family, and Gordon is a 4th generation of the Clark family now to own and operate the estate. And it's interesting with the Clarks, because when I say they own and operate, like their family who's involved in the business is directly involved in the business. So his uncle that is set to finish working with us next year for retirement, he was born at Worthy Park, basically lived his whole life at Worthy Park, except for the years that he went to university. And then has come back and has lived and worked at Worthy Park ever since. So that's Uncle Robert. He probably knows more about the ins and outs of Worthy Park than anybody alive, I should say. And yeah, he's in charge of the agricultural side of the company. Now we get to 1962. There was the industry at the time was really on the downfall, both sugar and rum. There was an overproduction of Jamaican rum at the time. So the Spirits Pool Association of Jamaica hired some consultants, some industry experts, and their analysis was to sum it all up, there's too many rum producers on the island. So they put out an offer for existing rum distillers to come out of rum and basically sell their molasses on the open through Spirits Pool to other distilleries. Worthy Park, again, at the time, we did not have any brands. We did not have any really much equity in the rum industry. So we came out of rum production. So for about 40-something years, we were out of rum. And then in 2004, Gordon came back to the company, back to Worthy Park, and convinced his family that there's an opportunity to sell Jamaican rum, not only in Jamaica, but on the global market. And they broke ground in 2004. And in 2005, we were making rum again. So that's kind of the annotated history of Worthy Park itself. But it gives you a good idea, an oversight to us.
How much rum did you guys produce you know, in the 19 start 60s?
We have no. There might be records, but we have no record of what we were doing back then. We had a small still at the sugar factory, and between the sugar factory between the still and the fermentation house, and we were storing rum. The footprint of that is literally like the size of, our current still itself. So it was really small. My interpretation, it was really small scale production that we're doing.
All right.
All right. So getting into a little bit more, and Mads, let me know whenever you want to jump back to the Madeira.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
All right, let's do that now. So I know it's a lot, so I think I was trying to like rush through everything, but I'm really in no rush to go anywhere, so we can take our time. So we go back to the Madeira. I'll just jump back a couple slides. So same idea as a port. We got in these wonderful Madeira barrels, and we decided to put a variety of different rums in them. Same exact setup, 8 years ex-bourbon, 2 years this time in ex-Madeira. And, this one was bottled at 45%. Again, same exact setup as the port, but just different casks that we started with.
Yeah, different type of wine, but still a fortified wine like port is.
Exactly. And it's really cool to see the difference, right? Because it's the same age liquid that went into the barrel, same mark. And then you can see if you compare the two, if you have your two glasses, you can see the differences between the Madeira influence and between the port influence as well. Which one do you like better, Matt?
I think the Madeira.
Yeah,
I might be more for the Madeira. It has some more intensity to the nose. I haven't tasted it yet, but more intense on the aromas. More like dried fruit and spiciness.
Definitely a lot spicier.
Cheers,
Cheers.
everybody.
Yeah. And it'll be cool. I'm interested to hear what you all think about which one you prefer. And overall with our portfolio at Worthy Park, we like to think we're kind of checking different boxes with all our releases for different people. So there's a rub for everyone in our portfolio.
I love this one.
Yeah. And I feel like too, people that like the port one really love the port one. And people that like the Madeira really like the Madeira. Like it's not like, kind of similar. It's usually like a very distinct one or the other.
We actually have a question here, Zan.
Okay.
I think I'll just pop it up on the big screen. Regarding the port, what do you think it added to the rum that it was stored 2 years in a port in comparison to the original rum put in the cask? Yeah.
Sorry.
So what he asks, basically what types of flavors in the port rum the port cask delivers to the rum?
I mean, I think you get, when you start with the fortified port, I think you get a lot of almost those darker, sweeter cherry notes that you get from it. Yeah. That's my initial thought of it. I think it almost gives it a little bit of that port sweetness on the aftertaste, which is a little different than how our 10-year-old rum would normally feel on the end of the palate. I think just some of those darker, sweeter notes it gets to it.
Yeah, it definitely adds sweetness to it.
Yeah,
and round off the alcohol, corners, if you can say it like that.
Yeah. It smooths it out a little bit on the end.
Yeah, it does.
Which is a word I always hate using, smooth, but yes, it does definitely smooth out the edges.
I think my favorite is the Madeira cask. I really love that spiciness to it. It has a lovely complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah, delicious.
It's been a while since I shouldn't even say that. I'd like to revisit the rums again. And when I say a while, it's probably like a week since I tried it, but
it's been a while.
Dude, if you ever come to my office and look at I had to buy a new cabinet last week just because every time Gordon would come to my office, he would kind of give me this look because I just have freaking sample bottles everywhere, like all over my desk, on top of the filing cabinets, like on the floor in boxes, and he just kind of look around and I'm like, Bossy, can I buy a cabinet? And he's like, yeah, go ahead and buy it. He's like, I can't. Basically, he's like, I can't look at all this shit everywhere anymore. He's like, buy a cabinet, put it all in the cabinet. So if anybody ever comes to my office, it looks like a typical work storage cabinet, but that's where all the goodies are.
Nice.
Yeah, let you in on a little secret. But as we get to going back to the knowledge, the formal stuff, right now, as we say at Worthy Park, we're essentially 3 different businesses under the Worthy Park umbrella at the Worthy Park estate. So we have our sugar farm, which is 10,000 acres of total land that we have, but about 4,000 acres of just cane planted at the estate. So we farm that, and then we have the sugar factory, which again has been in operation. And the sugar factory actually exists in the same spot since it started, but it's expanded over the years. But it is in the exact same location. And we've been the largest, sorry, my AC is getting a little loud. We've been the largest most efficient sugar factory since 1968. And we've been the largest producer of sugar in Jamaica for the last 6-7 years now. And then, of course, we have our distillery. So everything flows between the 3 in terms of the raw material getting to the distillery. But we're all 3 separate businesses at Worthy Park. Now, this is where we are located in Jamaica. So here's Kingston. That's where I am right now. It's about an hour and a bit drive up to Worthy Park. And we're kind of like dead set in the center of the island. Otrius is just at the top here. It's about an hour north. And I just laid out where the other distilleries are, just for frame of reference. So you see in Clarendon, there's 2, New Yarmouth and Moneymusk, which is Clarendon Distillery. Then you have Appleton Estate out in St. Elizabeth. And then up in Trelawney, you have Hamden Estate. And then you have Long Pond Distillers, which is Long Pond Distillery is owned by National Rums of Jamaica, but Long Pond Sugar Factory is actually owned by Hamden Sugar Estate, which it's kind of confusing for some people, but that's kind of an overview of Jamaica and where us as distilleries are laid out. But also, I think people underestimate the size of Jamaica. So, they're like, oh, we're going to come visit for an afternoon. I'm like, where are you staying? And they'll say, oh, in the Grill, which is all the way over here. And I'm like, okay, that's like a 4.5, 5-hour drive to get to Worthy Park. Probably going to need some more time to come and visit. But you can definitely come to the island for a week and visit all of the distilleries. It's not impossible, but you just need to kind of split up your stay a little bit. Just to zoom in a little bit on the Worthy Park estate, so you can kind of see we're shaped like a pear, the land, and you can kind of see all of our sugar cane fields laid out here. Uriton, which is over to the east of us, that's kind of the closest main city, and you kind of drive over through the mountains, and as you come down into the valley, I'm sure a lot of you see that red sign that says "Welcome to the Vale of Loidas," and that's when you're looking from there. This is what you see, and it's really remarkable how much land 10,000 acres is. And then all of our offices and majority of our buildings are kind of centralized here. And then the town of Loidasville, which is about 3,000 people, is right adjacent to Worthy Park Estate. So In this valley here, there used to be upwards of 30-ish sugar estates, and there were 6 sugar factories. And over the course of history, Worthy Park ended up expanding and expanding and expanding and taking over. And we're now the only sugar factory in the valley, and we're pretty much the only estate. There's some smaller plots of land that private farmers own, but essentially everything here is all Worthy Park. And just to dive down a little deeper for you, this road over here, as you drive in, this is where the gate is. And again, I think, can you see my pointer, Mads? Can you see my?
We can.
Okay.
Yes,
so yeah, you're driving in, and this is where the main entrance gate is right here. And as you drive in, you pass the distillery on the right, and then you drive in, and there's houses, the main offices, our garage, and sugar factory. And all these buildings are all houses that employees of Worthy Park live in. And then our sugar bagging plant, which we built about 2 years ago, is up here. And this tall building used to be a chicken coop. We used to have chickens, commercial chicken coops at Worthy Park. I mean, we've had agriculture out the ass, for lack of a better word. We had cacao, banana, citrus. We've had livestock. We've had a lot of different crops growing at Worthy Park over the course of history. But now, and since the Clarks bought the estate, it has all transitioned to the focus being on sugarcane growth. Fun little tidbit of information for you. This road here that you see cutting through the cane fields, that used to be a road, that used to just be a Worthy Park interval road, like between the cane fields. And this was actually the main road that actually went through the estate. And in the 70s, the owners of Worthy Park basically had lobbied and petitioned the government to make this road private, driving through the estate. And we cut out and basically donated this land to the government to make a road through. So we kind of changed the roadmap a little bit, so that now the main road doesn't drive through Worthy Park.
That must be nice.
Oh yeah, dude, it is. So this is my house up here. Where is it? Like right around here is my house. So it's super cool because it's quiet, but like I can see, like I'm a little bit up on a hill, so I can see the distillery and I can hear all the trucks driving through. So I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to have all this traffic going right through the estate. So it's really cool. All right, so getting back a little bit to our cane fields, coincidentally enough, today marked the end of crop for the year. So we harvest and produce sugar 6 months of the year. That's the law and how we operate in Jamaica. So we start the beginning of January and we always end around end of June, beginning of July, depending on how the sugars come in. So today marks the end of that. All of our fields are cut once per year. So we cut them once during the crop, and the rest of the year they're left to grow back, and we farm them and obviously take care of them throughout the off season. But yeah, there's 20 varieties of cane that grow at Worthy Park. Now, majority of our fields
Do you have a main variety?
No, we have about 3 varieties that are the most common. And in Jamaica, we don't have any official names for them. They're all named based on the country where they were hybrid, because they're all cross-bred cane, and then the year that it came to Jamaica. So I think the most common one, it's like BJ70, and then it goes into a sequence of numbers. And that was because it came from Barbados to Jamaica, and then it came over in 1970.
That's a very romantic name.
I know. People are always like, "Oh, what kind of cane is it?" And I was like, "I would love to tell you it's like land of the gods cane or something." Really, yeah, it's a really sexy name. But I tell you, when I tell you Worthy Park, we're just a commercial agricultural operation. It's like when I asked the farm manager, he's like, "The hell do I want to give it a name for? Like, this is what it is." So I'm like, "All right." There's a difference between the marketing of it and the actual operation of it. But all our fields are like the cane for each field is selected based on the chemical components of the soil, the amount of sun, the amount of water that these fields get. Because at Worthy Park, everything is complete 100% natural irrigation. So we don't have any, artificial irrigation. It's all literally rainwater that we rely on. And, we are surrounded by mountains. And so the floor of our valley is about 1,200 feet above sea level, about, 400 meters above sea level. So it is almost this very unique microclimate that we have. And it will, we get typically more rain than the surrounding areas. But it's crazy because it will be like when you're driving over the mountain, like you'll leave Worthy Park and it's like piss pouring rain, like storm and lightning and thunder. And then you drive over the hill and it's like sunny and blue skies. So it's really interesting. It's really cool, the little micro climate that we have. And I think it definitely contributes to the quality of our cane. Cane is always measured when it's being harvested. And we have some of the highest quality cane across the island of Jamaica. And a lot of, Jamaicans refer to Worthy Park as God bless country because it is very fertile. And man, I tell you, when you can see the difference when it's been a little bit of a drought and the rain hits, like it's literally like that things start growing back and everything is lush and green and vegetative as well. So it is a really cool environment that we live at. Now, as you see here, this field is being cut by a combine cane harvester. This is only done in about 20% of our fields. And the reason is most of our fields kind of look like this. Because they're on the side of hills and they're on environments where the combine cane harvesters literally cannot go on because they would either topple over or just not be able to make it up. So 80% of our fields are cut by hand still. And this is a little bit of what it looks like. So you can see here on the top left, when the field has been identified and ready for harvesting, the day before, we'll do a controlled burn of our cane field. So we'll literally light it on fire, and all this grass here in the middle will be burned away. If there's any rodents, like cane rats are a thing. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you've probably seen pictures of my cats catching cane rats. It's pretty interesting. Scared the shit out of me the first couple of times, but it's farm living, right? But then here on the top, you can see this is what the cane kind of looks like the next day after it's been burned. And that ash falls back on the fields and acts as fertilizer with all the nutrients and components in there. And then the cane cutters, they'll do two cuts, cut at the bottom of the cane and cut at the top. And they'll lay it in the rows like you can see here. And then the next day, or that day, it gets collected and brought to the sugar factory. And our objective is to cut and start processing within 24 hours. That is what we have as our kill to mill time. And it's a statistic that's constantly being measured because as the cane ages, it starts to oxidize and you lose some of the valuable nutrients in there.
I have a question regarding the field work. How many people are working in the field during the harvest season?
Oh man. All right. So just to give you an idea, in off season, we have about 250 employees. And when it's cane season or crop, we get up to 850 employees. So we have, if you think of a field, a couple of acres, you got two cane cutters working on each row. So you're looking at 30 to 40, 50 people a field cutting cane. So, and that's not including the guys driving the tractors, the people who are working on the rest and refreshments and the supervisor. So it's a huge, huge operation.
And you only harvest once a year, right?
Yeah. So for the first 6 months we harvest, and each field is only harvested once a year.
All right.
So
and do you rotate the different cane types, or is the same type of cane planted at the same spot in the same fields?
Yeah, so once the cane is cut, it starts to grow back within about a week. And what will happen is if the yield is good for that cane field, if we're still getting a lot of a ton of cane per hectare is how we measure it, then we don't replant it. So as soon as it starts to grow back, the farmers will go through and they'll what is called supply the field. So they'll take smaller pieces of cane and they'll plant it in between where cane is growing. So we're trying to grow as dense a cane field as possible. Now, if we do have to replant the field, it will typically be the same variety that we planted, unless there's unless the farm manager decides that he wants to try a different variety that he may think will give us a better yield in that based on that field. So they'll completely clear it, mold it, so they'll shape the rows, and then the guys will go in and they'll plant longer stalks of cane, and they'll lay it almost like this, kind of touching each other, if that is a good visual for you. And then all the knuckles of the cane is where the shoots will grow up from. So to answer your question in a very long way, no, we don't rotate unless the yield is low and there's a need to. But it's only cane as a crop, and we stick with the same variety unless the yield is low. Any other questions on cane farming?
No, I think we're good for now.
All right. So jump over to the sugar factory now. So similar to the fields operating 6 months of the year, our sugar factory operates 6 months a year. So this morning, funny enough, when I was driving out from the estate to come to Kingston, they had just finished. So at the end of every cane season, when the sugar production is completely done, they blow a steam whistle, which is the steam whistle that blows every shift change. But they blow it for like the super long time. So we drove for probably about 7-8 minutes, and it was still blowing. Because that is just the way to signify, the end of crop and the end of sugar production for the year. Our factory is still in operation in a sense. What happens is for the next 6 months, they basically take apart every piece of equipment, service it, fix what needs to be fixed, repair what needs to be repaired, because when we are in crop, it's 24 hours a day sugar operation. So we have 3 shifts, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it's literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sugar operation. What it looks like is the cane comes in, it's received, and we have these huge cranes that bring the cane over to start being processed. It gets washed first, and then as it goes into the factory, it goes through a shredder. And the shredder starts to cut the cane, exposes the fibers on the inside, and sends it through the mill. We have 5 of these mills. And when I say we have the smallest sugar factory in Jamaica, it's because they rate it based on the size of the mills. So we have 5 of these mills, which are about 42 inches wide, and some of the bigger factories have, double the amount of mills that we have, and even bigger size of the mills. But that's our line. So it starts to get crushed there. The first juice gets extracted and it goes to a clarifier. And in this tank, you can see there's a lot of mud and other discolorants that come in with the juice. And we add lime, a flocculant to it. And it separates the clear juice from the muddy water that goes to the rotary vacuum filter. And then the bagasse, this is the leftover fibers, or not the leftover, the fibers that are separated in sugarcane production. And we send that bagasse to the furnace, and it burns, and it provides steam for the steam turbines. And the turbines are what produces electricity to power the factory. So we generate all the electricity pretty much for the estate at our sugar factory. And all of the sugar factory is powered by electricity created at the sugar factory. And this is just to give you a scale of how much bagasse we store. and we have that chicken coop as well as filled with the gas, because if there's any downtime for whatever reason, if we're waiting for more cane to come or there's a breakdown in equipment, we still need to burn the gas to create electricity. So we always have a big store of it in the at the sugar factory. Now, after the clarifier, the juice looks like this, and then it comes through and it looks like this. This is the color of it after it goes through the clarifier. So that cane juice now goes to a series of 5 evaporators, and the evaporators are evaporating the water content of the cane juice, and then you're left with what we refer to as a cane syrup. That cane syrup goes to one of our 5 vacuum pans, and through a low heat, that is where sugar crystals grow. So in those vacuum pans is when you start to get sugar crystals. At the end of that process, you have what's called massicrete, and the massicrete is molasses and the sugar crystals combined together. We send that to a centrifuge, and the centrifuge spins and it separates the sugar and molasses. And we do that a series of 3 different times through production. And the final molasses, some people refer to it as blackstrap or sea molasses. That is what goes to the distillery for rum production, and that is what goes to be sold on to other distilleries for their own rum production. And this is what the cane sugar looks like. And this is just an overview of our sugar factory. We have a cooling pond here, so we're recycling the water as it comes through, and we're reusing it. And on the back here, this is some of the bagasse overflow, again, that we're using for produce the steam. Now, our water supply for the sugar factory, there's an aqueduct that was built in the early 1800s that still supplies water to Worthy Park to this day. Our sugar factory was once powered, you can see by this water. It was powered by water. I just drew a blank on what these damn things are called. Water wheels. There was only in Luidesville only ever one sugar factory that was ran by windmill. We just don't get that much breeze here. But that windmill, the ruins are still here. So if you guys ever come and we can go take pictures by the old windmill. My kids love to climb up it and go inside, and it's really just overgrown now, but it's a really interesting part of history. And you can see some of the overgrown vegetation where some of the old buildings were, because there's still some of the foundation parts of it. So again, a lot of history around the area, a lot of places to explore. We've been the most efficient sugar factory since 1968. And similar to our rum, where we started to get into branding our rum, we started getting into branding our sugar as well. So we now have Worthy Park branded sugar available for sale in Jamaica. And actually Denmark, with 1423, we have, sorry, I can't turn off my air conditioner. I'm like freezing here. We started now selling sugar, and Denmark 1423 has brought in some sugar, which you may have seen on if you meet up with any of the 1423 guys. Any questions on sugar production?
We actually have a question regarding the different varieties of cane.
Okay.
And the type of molasses they produce. And
okay.
Are there any differences in the cane types and the molasses flavor, and which maybe transcends over into the rum?
There would be, you would be able to see the difference if we isolated and we're doing a lot of fermentation primarily from cane juice. But because our primary business right now is sugar production, and sugar production is very much an economies of scale operation where we're just trying to cut and bring in as much cane as possible. So, and a lot of that is based on, the cycles of production and how the fields are growing. So we don't separate the cane at the factory. As it arrives at the factory, it all goes in together, and we we then make molasses from it. So I don't think any of it transcends over into the final rum production. You may see a difference if we use the different types of molasses that we make at Worthy Park, because as we start the flow of it, you start first with A molasses, then you send that leftover to production, reproduce, and you get B molasses, and then you get C molasses. So those different types of molasses, you have different sugar content, different Brix levels. So you could probably see a difference if we're doing fermentation between the different molasses types. But we are only using C molasses at the distillery right now. I will say that we have started doing fermentation straight from cane juice. So stay tuned, because you will see some of that popping up over the next year and a bit too.
Sounds great. Well, should we take a 5-10 minute break?
Yeah, let's do it. It's been like an hour. Take a little break.
Yep. Well, let's do that, and let's see you. We will see each other again in 10 minutes. Let's say that.
All right. Sounds good.
Great. And for everybody who wants to participate in our draw, this is how you do it. Yeah.
Is your book in English?
No, sorry, only Danish. Actually, the previous one was translated into Swedish. I don't know if you are good with Swedish language.
Swedish, Danish. Yeah, I'll probably just look at the pictures. I'll probably just look at the pictures of both of them. Do you have plans on writing any more?
This came out last year, so I'm good for now.
Nice.
Well, everybody, see you in 10.
All right, cool.
Right.
Getting ready to go back?
Yeah, I think we are ready to start up again. I don't know if we should start with the rum.
Yeah,
next line. I don't know if you can find the slide for the 109.
Yeah, let me find it here. Do you want to do 109 and wait on the overproof and just do 109 right now?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Smart.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I actually really like StreamYard for presentations, man. I think it gives more functionality, I think, like from the presentation side. Like, Zoom is good for meetings and stuff, but it's still like what's a word? It's not as fluid and flows very well.
Okay, everybody, we're back from the break, and now we want you to pour the Worthy Park 109, the darkest of them all. And
dun, dun, dun.
We have it right there.
All right. So everyone
this is the new bottling.
Brand new, bro.
Yeah.
This one you guys are like some of the first to try it, because it really, I don't think it's been in the 1423 warehouse for more than a month, not even. But Josh was insistent that we get it there in time to do this tasting, because he says if it's not happening first in Copenhagen and Denmark, it's not happening. Just joking. But yeah. So story time, as you guys get familiar with this rum. So those of you that have known me or we talked over the past couple of years at some of these events, this was originally called Worthy Park Gunpowder Proof. So you may hear, from time to time, people call it gunpowder or gunpowder proof rum. And we were definitely, trying to play into that old naval history of, gunpowder rum and, that legend. And, we had it at 54.5 and, all the good stuff. But unbeknownst to us, there was a company that had registered the trademark for gunpowder proof rum. We honestly, we didn't even think it was a trademarkable thing, just like overproof rum or, we didn't even think twice about it. But thankfully they let us know. And it was literally like the week that we were supposed to go into production for labels for it. So obviously emergency call to my lawyer, emergency call to my label printer. And, we decided that, you better pump, it's probably best to, you haven't invested any money in the brand yet. So just, pump the brakes and come up with a different name. So we're like, all right, what are we going to call it? Like dark rum, high proof rum, strong rum. And it was, from talking to Josh, actually, that he's like, why don't you call it 109 proof? It kind of plays into, the old 151s of the day, whether it was a Bacardi or the Appletons or the Lambs or whatever, all those Lemon Hearts and everything. But it's still different because it's 109 and it's, no one has called a rum 109. And we think it's kind of, it rolled off the tongue very well. And that's what
you guys have to trademark it.
Right? Yeah. So we're trademarking 3 numbers. Actually, now that you mention it, maybe I should probably look at that. But this is that's how the story of the naming convention goes. But the story of the rum itself, we've from just going through and again talking to the industry and seeing what rums are out there. There was kind of the heyday when you look back at the early kind of 1920s, 1930s, when the tiki scene in America was developing. And then you had all of these rums coming out of Jamaica, like, the Myers and the Carubas, which were always these very, higher proof rums, but typically 100% pot still rums. Again, this is before columns came to Jamaica. So a lot of, from talking to, people in the industry, there's like, man, like there's this kind of a gap and kind of this hole that, needs to be filled. And there was a huge demand from, especially the cocktail scene, that, man, they wanted this 100% pot still, higher proof, but quote unquote dark rum. So I said, all right, let's see what can happen. And again, it's years in the making. When I tell you, I've been slanging this out of sample bottles in my backpack for the last 2 years. I'm not exaggerating, but we thought that it was a box to check, and we went through and went through a whole bunch of different iterations of it with my blending team, and we landed on this, and we wanted to keep it at 54.5% just to kind of be unique and throw back to that gunpowder proof heritage. But we did purposely want to make it dark, and which is very different than our use of spirit caramel in any of our other rums, because that was for consistency. This is for consistency as well, but a much darker added consistency to it. So yes, there was color in it because it's primarily a 3-year-old age rum, but we have a very little bit of WPE unaged rum for it. And again, there's no sugar added, but we do have the caramel for color and this non-chill filter. But it's a very specific, target that we're going for with this rum. And, I saw one, comparing it to really anything outside of those really darkened Jamaican rums is not really a fair comparison. So we're very specific in where we're targeting this, but the initial feedback has been phenomenal in terms of people playing with it in cocktails. And I think one of the compliments that I like the best on it was people that got back to us and said, they would just drink it straight.
Yeah, definitely. It's drinkable. It's actually very, very delicious. And you smell the high ester content. How much of the total blend is VPE? Can you say that?
Dude, it's when I tell you, it's like the percentage is less than the amount of fingers on your hand. All right. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, it is a small percentage, and it is incredible how much variety it gives to the rum.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is
people like it a lot. I think
are you asking or are you telling me?
Make a Mai Tai on this one tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Mai Tai. I saw Maggie posted a picture of a painkiller with it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we can call it painkiller because that's trademark too, but that same drink. Mai Tais, zombies, planters punches, even just straight rum and cokes, man. It does. Yeah. It does. But yeah, it's really,
here from a guy called Matt. What does non-chill filtered mean?
So chill filtering is a type of filtration where and again, apologies for being not the most chemist-oriented mind probably on this podcast, but it's a type of filtration where some of the components, the chemical components are taken out of it. And the result is, or the reason we don't use chill filtration is because all of the chemical components that would be filtered out, which people look at as impurities, we look at as flavor components that we want in the rum. One of the, I guess, consequences of non-chill filtering is when you look at, if you ever pick up a bottle and sometimes there's cloudy, it almost looks like a cloudy residue in the bottle. It's because those are not filtered out because of non-chill filtering. So it's really impacted by the temperature. And when you shake it up, those things disappear. But it's just a method of filtration, and we just like to point it out because it is comes over a lot from the whiskey world, and it is seen as not as positive as a thing. Yeah, that's why we mentioned it.
We have another question here from Carsten. He asks what Vpl and Vpe means, and I guess we will go into that a bit further in the presentation. But maybe you just can quickly say what those letters stands for.
Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about different styles of rum that we make, we identify each one as a mark of rum. And how we at Worthy Park differentiate it, and most of the distilleries, especially in Jamaica, is based on the ester level. So our WPL It stands for Worthy Park Light, and it is for Worthy Park. It is a lighter style of rum, lighter style pot still rum, and it refers to the method of production that we do that gives us a rum that lands between about 60 parts to 119 parts per million of esters, of ethyl acetate. Now, WPE is our highest ester mark of rum that we make, and it's actually Worthy Park Extra, and that lands upwards, usually around 800 parts per million, but it can go higher.
It can go higher. How high can it go?
Oh, it can go high. I mean, we've gotten up to about 1,200 at Worthy Park. Not consistently, but we have done it before.
All right. Cool.
And yeah, and we'll actually, as part of this tasting kit, those are two of the marks that we are tasting. And at Worthy Park, typically, majority of our rums are WPL mark that we've been aging.
All right. Onwards to fermentation, I guess.
Yes, to the distillery. Yeah. So this is, as you can see here on the bottom right, this is where the entrance is to the distillery. And prior to 2004, this was just another cane piece, another cane field. But we decided to put it there because it's close to the main road. So when we have trucks and tankers coming in, it's easy in and out and access. It's very close to the offices, so it's not a far drive. And it is also very close enough to the sugar factory that we dug an underground pipe to transport the molasses to the sugar factory. And our water is from a well, which is, if you see my mouse pointer, it's like way up here. It's about 2 kilometers north. And we have an underground pipe that connects our well to our water tank. And then we can also supplement the water with water from the sugar factory as well that flows to the sugar factory from the aqueduct. These two buildings are the first two buildings we built. This is the distillery building where fermentation, distill, blending happens. And this is our kind of service building. And then we have our aging warehouse and our raw goods and bottling facility over here. And this pond behind the distillery is not a swimming pond. It is not a fishing pond either. That is where we store our dunder, which is the wastewater that comes off of the still. And we let that cool down, and we actually use it in the fields for irrigation. So we use it as for fertigation. We use it as a fertilizer in the fields.
How many liters of pure alcohol do you produce in the distillery per year?
For a year, we can do, if we produce like full straight, at maximum production, it would be about 2 million LAAs per year, right, at about 85% or so. Okay. So before we go on, just for people, you've heard me talk a lot about esters, and at the base level, what an ester is it's when you take alcohol and you combine it with carboxylic acid, and it gives you an ester. It is an important contributor to the aroma of the rum and is responsible for a lot of those fruity notes that you get. And here in Jamaica, we have always looked at esters as a good thing. Other producing islands, companies, they through distillation and filtration like to lower their ester count. But for us, it's a very important part of rum production. Now, high ester rum, I will say an ester count doesn't always tell you if a rum is better or worse, or if you'll like a rum better or worse. All it is really telling you is literally how much esters are in the rum. So it gives you an indication, kind of a ballpark, an idea of what a rum is going to be like, but it is one of dozens of different chemical components that are present in rum. So it's just kind of putting that out there for people because I do find there is a lot of hang up on, I need the highest ester rum I can get, but it's not always what is drinkable for you. But it just, again, is kind of a good quantifier about how the rum is produced. So we've talked a little bit about the molasses that we make. As we transition into yeast, there's 3 types of yeast that we use at Worthy Park. We have our dry activated yeast, which is your commercially available yeast. Then we have our isolated proprietary yeast, which comes out of our cane fields. And we have that specific yeast strain that we've identified, and we use it for some of our marks as well. And the third type of yeast is what we use for our high ester rum, and it is our wild yeast. So there is also, I should say, there is a lot of talk with Jamaican rum about muck pits and dunder pits. Just to give you a little bit of information. So Hamden, which is, you know, our friends out in Trelawney, their specialty are a lot of their rum. Sorry, shouldn't say. How do I rephrase it? What they're well known for is their use of muck pits, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. It's kind of like the backbone to their rum. And those muck pits are basically big soups of carboxylic acid that sit in the, you know, underground. And they actually don't know how deep it goes or how wide it goes, but you know, they put some of their dunder into that, and it just keeps this cycle going. And they'll use that muck in their fermentation to basically, it's almost like spiking their fermentation to get a higher ester count, because that's their bread and butter over there. So when we built the distillery, we said, well, you know, that's kind of Hamden's thing. They've been doing it, you know, for years and centuries. What we're going to do is we're going to produce a high ester rum using wild yeast that we propagate at the estate. So we have these they're about 20,000 liter propagation tanks. And in those, we'll add molasses and cane juice and crushed cane stalks. And they are open air, so it's open to, you know, the environment. And we'll let it sit for 90 days. And after those 90 days, we'll use that yeast culture that develops as the starter for our fermentation. So that is our wild yeast, and that's how we do our high ester rum.
So that's the booster for the VPE.
Exactly. So, excuse me, in fermentation is when the molasses is consumed, the sugar in the molasses is consumed by the yeast, and the yeast expel alcohol. So that's where alcohol develops in fermentation. And we have about 80,000 liter fermentation tanks. All of our fermentation tanks at Worthy Park are closed fermentation. And it ranges from 30-hour cycles for our lighter rum to 3 weeks for our high ester rum. And our lighter rum production is temperature controlled. And at the end of that process, your wash is what the leftover liquid is about 8 to 9% ABV. Our high ester, our heavy rum production, there's no temperature control. That's why it goes for, you know, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. And it's you're left with a wash of about 5 to 6% ABV. And all of our fermentation is batch fermentation. So, you know, we'll fill it, and then as the yeast is slowing down, we'll add in more molasses, and we'll keep adding and adding. So we do incremental feeding for our fermentation tanks. This is what, you know, I took a picture of the inside of a fermentation tank as it was starting to bubble up. Got hit with massive CO2, which is not always safe. But
it's not a pleasant feeling.
No, not at all.
You only do that once. When
like you're cleared, like your whole nasal passage is cleared for like 6 months. But yeah, it's not a good feeling. It's also probably prudent for me to talk about, you know, a double retort pot still. And to preface, you know, the double retort pot still is seen as one of the very traditional, authentic methods of making rum in Jamaica. And for us, it is one of the key things that's responsible for getting you that heavy body, you know, full flavored Jamaican rum that you're used to. And it's not to say that we only use double retorts in Jamaica, because since the 60s, we've had column stills come in. So some of the other producers will blend pot and column, but we stick with stick with double retort pot distillation. And this, in essence, is where the magic happens for it. This is 18,000 liters. So if you can see, this is on a platform up. So this is a second level. So you'd walk up, and, you know, it's 18,000 liter capacity. It's made by Forsyth out in Scotland. So they're, you know, arguably the industry leaders in pot still manufacturing. And how the double retort system works is the wash comes in, and it goes through a heat exchanger, which cools down the dunder or wastewater coming off. and it heats up the wash coming in. And it's heated through this external steam calandria. So there's a flow of wash, and it gets heated up and flows back in, and heated up and flows back in. And that evaporates and then condenses through the swan neck, through the line arm into our low wine retort. And there's wash in here from the previous, liquid in here from the previous distillation. So the vapors coming off here heat up the liquid that's in here, and then that cycle happens again where the alcohol, because it evaporates at a lower temperature, and evaporates and condenses into what we call a high wine retort. And again, there's liquid in here that is heated from the vapors coming off the low wine. Same cycle happens again, and then it comes through the condenser, and we do our rum cuts at about 85 to 87% ABV. Now, underneath that, from about 70 to 75 to 85% is called high wines, and we put that back. So that is what goes back into this high wine retort. And then the low wines are about 60 to 75%, and we put that here into our low wine retort. And we take it a step further. That's pretty common. We take it a step further, and we capture back extra low wines, and we'll put some of the extra low wines back into our initial charge pot as well. So that just, is how we're, again, trying to extract as much rum alcohol as possible from distillation. As I was saying before, the wash comes in about 9%, and it gets condensed to about 30% in the low wine retort, 60% in the high wine retort, and then that's where we do our cuts of about 85 to 87% there. Some of you may be looking at this thing up here and like, what the hell is that? It looks like a little column still. Well, you're right. It is something that we added on after we put in the pot still, because we were trying to get a lower style, a lower ester pot still rum. And the bloody thing didn't work up until the beginning of last year. What we had to do is we retrofitted it. And this arm is no longer straight. It actually goes up and over like this. So it kind of mimics these arms. And now it does work. So we're able to get a much lighter style of pot still distillate, which we're starting to use in blends and aging as well. And this whole cycle is about a 4 to 5 hour cycle. And we could run typically, if we ran 24 hours a day, we get about 5, 6, maybe about 8,000, 9,000 LAs per day. And just for comparison's sake, and I will say, we obviously only do double retort pot still distillation. It, just like I was talking about high ester counts, it's not intrinsically better or worse than other styles of distillation, but it's good to point out that there is a difference in production off the two. So this is our still, and for example, this is a multi-column still, so I went to kind of the other extreme in distillation. And these are continuous stills that you're able to produce a much lighter style of rum, so you're able to extract a lot more filter out in a way a lot of these chemical compounds. But you also are able to make, ethanol, neutral alcohol, vodka off of those stills. It's a much more industrial method of making rum because it is, mid 20th century, whereas we, with our pot stills, are kind of clinging to, we like to refer to as a more artisanal way of making rum. All we make is rum off of our still. That's all we can make. We actually, funny enough, experimented with making sanitizer over the last year, and our sanitizer literally smells like rum. So yeah, so we had complaints. I love
the sanitizer.
Yeah, I love it. I just sit there in my office and spray sanitizer. And so, but we did get a lot of complaints from people like, we don't like it because it smells too much like rum. And I'm like, you would rather smell like industrial, chemicals than rum, but to each their own. And we make about, just in terms of capacity and output, we can do about 230 liters per hour in our pot still, whereas the multi-column stills, you're looking at like 2,500 liters per hour. So obviously they're able to produce a much, much higher volume, make a lot larger volumes of rum for a lot cheaper than we can do on our pot still. So That's just a little, again, not to say, and I'm not bashing, just for the record, I'm not bashing multi-column still rum production, just trying to point out the differences. And then aging, we have touched on this a little bit before. We have about 10,000 barrels aging since 2005. Our Angel share is about 4 to 6% each year. And we're primarily ex-bourbon, American white oak, and export Madeira, cognac, and Calvados are what we're working with. This is not how we age. We don't age outside. It is inside, but I just really like this picture, so I put it up there. But this is how we store our barrels in our warehouse. So we put 6 on a pallet, and we can go 5 pallets high. And it's just easier for space. And you can, with a forklift, you can move around barrels pretty easy. This picture is actually from the inside of our aging warehouse. And you can see these white tags on each of the barrels. So once we fill a barrel, we put down in it, obviously the date, the mark, the weight, the ABV, etc. So we do have a very managed process within our distillery of how we are storing our barrels. Now, interestingly enough, or randomly, I guess I should say, random story for you. When I call down to the distillery and I'm like, hey, I need, samples of, this year or this distillate, it's not always that they're going to be these ones here that are easily accessible. So sometimes the guys have to literally climb and kind of Spider-Man through the barrel warehouse, and they're up there with a jug and with a drill, and they're drilling into the barrel and catching the rum, and then, capping it with a little piece of wood. So yeah, they love me when I send emails of, 13 different barrels for them to get samples from. But yeah, it's a fun operation. It's a fun place to work. And, lastly, from the production standpoint, we do all of our blending and bottling in-house on site, which kind of closes the loop as we refer to ourselves as a single estate producer, with literally, the raw materials, the fermentation, distillation, aging, blending, and bottling, everything done on site. And we are the only producer in Jamaica that is complete, single estate rum production.
Do you use all the molasses for the production, or do you sell your leftover molasses to other distilleries in Jamaica?
Yeah, so good question, Matt. So we only use about 30% of our output of molasses. So we do have quite a bit of growth where we can grow and still be single estate. But all the molasses in Jamaica is bought and sold through a company called Caribbean Molasses, which is basically a subsidiary of the Spirits Pool Association. And they're, at the beginning of the year, all the distilleries put in for their molasses need, and then Caribbean Molasses goes and sources the molasses on the open market. And then all the sugar producers now sell their molasses to Caribbean Molasses. Jamaica as an island, we're a net importer of molasses. Because obviously with the level of production that National Rums of Jamaica and Campari are doing on the island, we as the largest sugar producer, we can't make enough molasses for the rest of the island's distilleries. So there is molasses sourced from whether it's Belize or Panama or wherever it is every year. All right, almost done, guys. Everyone's still with me?
Yeah,
guys and girls. All
right,
right.
Thirsty now. For some white rum.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you all for making it this far. So white rum, for lack of a better phrase, the often bastard stepchild of the rum world. White rum is always seen as has been historically seen as like that cheap drink that you have to mix and is not good on its own. But, for us, especially in Jamaica, white overproof rum is the rum of the island. You're looking at on island upwards of 500,000 cases of rum of this just being sold on island. So when we got back into distillation, the first rum we wanted to launch, because it's the most lucrative, is white rum. So in blend work and focus groups and test groups, somebody said, boy, this is the living Rumbar rum. Like, this is a rum that tastes like it should be served at the little rum bars across the island. So we ran with it as a brand name. So that's how we got Rumbar as a brand name for the company. And this one in particular is a blend of 3 of our unaged marks. Again, there's no sugar added. It's at 63%, which is kind of fairly typical across all the Jamaican overproofs. But when we launched originally in 2007, it was actually at 65%. So not only did we launch with a stronger ABV rum, we also launched the first pot still only overproof rum on the island. So, you know, a lot of the feedback that we still to this day get in Jamaica is, man, Rumbar's strong. Rumbar's a strong rum. So even when we put it down to 63%, you know, we would still get those, I won't say complaints. We'd still get that feedback across the island when it compares to, you know, there are other rums that are out there. But, you know, this is our go-to, you know, this is the flagship for our company. And we've done, you know, this is what has really put us on the map internationally. And this is what got kind of some eyes back on Worthy Park, really and truly is a overproof rum. It's my daiquiri rum. It's the best way to start a night. It's the best way to end a night. But it's also great in, you know, cocktails, in those same tiki cocktails, or even just with like a hair on that cocktail card with a grapefruit soda. Or, you know, here we have ginger beer, which is a very popular soda on the island. I really enjoy our rum with ginger beer. Probably lately, that's what I've been drinking it the most with. But yeah, you'll find white rum in pretty much every house in Jamaica. It's not always used for drinking though. You know, if you're sick, like right now, even with my sinuses, you know, the white rum just really helps to, you know, clear it out. Yeah, it helps to clear it out. When I was a younger child and was sick, you know, grandma would put it on, you know, a rag and dab it on my forehead to help make you feel better. And, you know, to this day, you know, people will say, you know, if your kids are teething, put a little on their gums and, you know, it helps them out. I don't know if it works or not. It definitely puts them to sleep, but, you know, I think it's frowned upon in other countries.
I think so too, but it's a nice tradition.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, it's one of those things like if you're building a house, you splash some overproof rum in the corners for, you know, for good luck and to keep the duppies away and all that stuff. But yeah, this is our baby, our overproof.
Some of the people out there might not know what a duppy is. Can you tell us?
Oh, sorry. A duppy is a ghost. What we refer to in Jamaica as a ghost.
The duppy share. Yeah.
Yeah. So angel share is what it's known in most places, but you hear some people call it the duppy share in Jamaica.
Yeah. So it says it's a blend of 3 different marks. What marks are represented in this blend? So
we have our WPE, which is our highest ester, and then we have our WPL, and then depending on, you know, again, there's just to keep it consistent, sometimes we'll use WPEL, which is our extra light, and then now sometimes we'll use our WPUL, which is our Worthy Park ultra light. And again, it's all, you know, because rum, we're pretty consistent, but there is slight variations every time you blend, so we're always using what will give us a consistency in each batch.
What's the Ester Count on this one?
On this one, roughly, in terms of total congeners, you're looking about 355 or so. But, you know, Ester Count is roughly around. It sounds like a lot less than it tastes like, but it's really about, for ethyl acetate alone, it's about 70 parts per million.
Okay.
Cool. Shall we move on?
This is a great white rum, also for sipping, if you ask me. Yeah, it has a lot of flavors, and it goes down really, really smooth.
Thank you. And you know, I always like to say, like, unaged rum is like that's how a distillery tastes, right? So like, you know, before we have the influence of the barrels and the wood and everything, like this is like when you try our samples of unaged, like this is like Worthy Park Distillery.
Yeah. This is the backbone of the Worthy Park flavor.
Exactly. Yeah. So I talked a little bit about the Jamaican Rum Landscape. So essentially, there's a Spirits Pool Association, which is there to promote the interests of Jamaican rum. And the Spirits Pool is owned and funded by all the distilleries, which are all the companies. So it's Worthy Park, Hamden, Campari, and National Rums of Jamaica. And underneath, as a part of the Spirits Pool, is Caribbean Molasses, which is the arm that is responsible for the buying and selling of molasses on the island of Jamaica. So even though our molasses does not leave Worthy Park, we technically sell it from the sugar factory to Caribbean Molasses, and then we technically buy it. The distillery buys it from Caribbean Molasses. So yeah, it's an interesting transaction, but
it sounds a bit stupid, but
it is. But it's all supposed to be maintaining the fairness, and every distillery is supposed to have access to molasses at the same price. Essentially, is what it is there for. So it's if all the distilleries had to buy molasses on the open market, the volume I'm sure you wouldn't get the best pricing, but as Caribbean Molasses is buying collectively for all the distilleries, it's able to sell it then to the distilleries at the same price. So it's just supposed to keep some fairness across the board. I mean, again, amongst other things, but that's kind of the basis of it. And this, again, I was just kind of showing, where all the distilleries are located. And I did mention at the beginning, there's 4 ownership groups for the rum making in Jamaica. There's Campari, which is arguably the largest, and they own Appleton Estate, and New Yarmouth, which is their other distillery that they own. National Rums of Jamaica is owned 33% by Sugar Holdings of Jamaica, which is a government subsidiary, 33% by DDL, which is Demerara Distillers out of Guyana, and then 33% by Maison Ferrand, which is obviously out of France. And then you have Hamden Sugar Estate and Distillery, which is owned by Everglades Farms, which is the Hussey family. So I'm sure a lot of you know Christelle. Who doesn't know Christelle, homegirl, but from Hamden. So her family owns there. And then Worthy Park Estate, which is, again, the only other Jamaican-owned distillery, completely Jamaican-owned, and we're owned and operated majority by the Clark family. Now, let's get to the two last ones. So Fair Play, these are at 70% ABV, just to give everybody that last warning. We are going to start with our WPL. Make sure I don't mix it up here. So I actually did pull some of the stats from these as we go through. And the WPL is made with our dry activated yeast. And this has a 30-hour fermentation. And again, is all molasses. Oh man, this is so good. Oh, sorry, as I bask in it.
Whoa. It's almost a bit salty.
Right?
Right? I guess you can smell salt, but
it does give you that kind of oliviness, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. But I actually did pull the GC, and it is the grams of esters, and this is 33, but 521 grams per 100 LAs of total congeners. And this would have come off the still at 85%, but it's diluted down to 70. And this is most commonly what's aged at Worthy Park. Our aged rum expressions are Rumbar Gold, the cask finish stuff, as well as the single estate reserve, all started as this. So it's kind of cool to see where those rums came from. And this is how they started.
Yeah. How big a percentage of the total production is VPL?
I would say it's probably upwards about 80-85% of what we do.
All right.
Yeah, the WPE is a really, because it's used, the blends it's used in is such a small capacity. Like, we don't use a lot of it. We don't make a lot of it. And it costs us about twice as much to make our WPE just because of the long fermentation, the long pre-fermentation, and the amount of molasses that goes into it. So, you know, it really is an expensive mark of rum to make.
Jens is asking, what is congeners?
So congeners are the chemical components of rum, and there's everything from, you know, the chemical names. There's like propanol, fusel oils, you know, 2-butanol, all ethyl acetate. Those are all congeners, but particularly in rum, we've historically focused on ethyl acetate, which is what we refer to as an ester. But it's kind of clouded a little bit in discussion when you talk about esters and congeners and all these numbers are thrown out. But the congeners is like, if we do an analysis of the rum, that these are all the chemical components of it. So similar to what we were talking about with Ester Count, like it doesn't always tell you if a rum is good or not, but you can dive down deeper into it and look at like, all right, like fusel oils are good, but not too much of them. You know, propanol, we try to keep it low. So it's always a balance, right? Because you can have two rums with the same congener count and be totally different, even from Worthy Park's perspective. And it's all based on the ratio and balance of all the congeners together. And that's what a big part of the focus of the distiller is.
Actually, Chris has a great question here. He asks what percentage of the total VPE production goes to share in Amsterdam? I don't know if you can tell us that. Oh,
Chris. Is that Chris from the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Of course it is. A very small percentage. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but yeah, it's not a big percentage that goes to them.
And this is the barreling strength, right?
Yes, good point. So 70% is a barreling strength. So this is exactly the strength this is exactly the rum that would go into our barrel to start aging. What would be cool if you guys have a second glass to be able to pour the WPE into that and almost do like a quick side-by-side so you can really get an idea of just how the different yeast and the different fermentation times impacts the rum. Because this is at 70% as well. Now, I know, right? So as I was saying about how high we get, typically we get about 800 grams per 100 LAAs of esters. And with this one, and Josh, this is the one that you got last in your shipment. It's almost 1,000. It's almost 1,000. So this was a really high Ester Count WPE for us. So
it smells really, really good.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, yeah. So it's got, it's on the tip of my tongue. What I'm getting more of this compared to the WPL. But
yeah, more fruit, more banana.
Yeah. It's just, it's like right on the tip of my tongue, the word I'm looking for, but.
Pineapple as well?
Yeah, I think it's the pineapple I'm getting. Tastes like my smoothie this morning.
It's a strong smoothie.
Yeah, right. But this is now a product of a 90-day pre-fermentation, and a 2 to 3 week long fermentation time, which is how you get a WPE. And this is such a fun one because I don't know if anybody's actually tasted it, but while it is, yes, a kick in the face, it's still not, I don't think, nearly as overpowering as you would expect.
No, definitely. And I think sometimes when I get a real high ester count from Jamaica, sometimes you can get that hint of nail polish remover, but you don't get that at all on this one. It's all fruit, all tropical fruit, really.
It's a good one, man.
High quality.
And again, just to keep shouting out my 1423 partners, they did an SBS release with this bad boy aged, and it was phenomenal. Yeah. And they also just we did a single barrel release for them of WPE 3-year-old, which is, I don't know if it's still for sale out there, but if you can get your hands on it, It was the first time. It's the oldest aged WPE that we've ever done. Oh, I just want to smell this all night.
Yeah. But they are completely different, right?
Yeah.
They do totally different things. But they're good in their own way, their own distinct way.
Yep. And again, same still, but just different yeast and different fermentation times. And it's incredible, like when you think of the different variables in rum production. Like if I'm talking to my blender and he's like, oh, I'm going to try to get, the propanol levels down. Like, it's not like, all right, I'm just going to adjust something in distillation. It's like temperature and time of distillation, the type of molasses that we're using, the type of yeast that we're combining with that molasses, the temperature of fermentation, how long we're fermenting. Like, there's so many different variables. It's like, it's befuddling, or it's crazy to me.
Mass says that the VPE reminds of Paranubis from Mexico, if you know that one.
Oh, which is a very, very good rum. So thank you for that. That's a compliment.
Super funky.
Yeah, it's just like it's like you just stuck your face in a pile of dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the best way possible.
The term funky, Zan, can you explain to the people what that means when people describes a Jamaican rum with the term funk? Is it this is funky rum?
It's $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those when you start drinking and experimenting with Jamaican rums, and you're like, yeah, that's that Jamaican funk. It's almost like an indescribable phrase, but I think, in my humble opinion, it references a lot to those really overripe banana and pineapple notes that are pretty common across all the distilleries in different variations. The funkiness and you also hear to it referred as hogo, which relates back to that old time French phase of, and my French sucks, so I'm probably butchering it, but it referred back to that meaty, gamey taste that was evident, and that kind of rolled into describing Jamaican rum with a lot of hogo, or a lot of, and again, funk is probably the number one word that comes up when you're describing Jamaican rum. So all that to say, I didn't even give you an answer, whoever asked that question, but it is you ask 10 people and you're gonna get 10 different answers.
Yeah. And I think it's important to stress that these the last two ones you can't buy anywhere. This is for the tasting only.
Yeah, those are special treats, man. Those were just to really give. And I've done a couple tastings where it was all our unaged marks, and it was literally just like a vertical tasting of unaged marks, because they're so different, man. It's so cool to see like what comes out of distillation and how you can produce so many different marks and that are all so different off of the same still.
Yeah, great opportunity to try.
Yeah, thank you for giving me that. And again, we're kind of wrapping up here with with the final couple slides. And just to let everybody know, we do have a visitor center now at Worthy Park. So, before it was all dependent on whether I was in town or not, whether you got a tour. But now we have an official tour going. So, if you're ever coming down and I'm not available, just come on out. We can give you the Worthy Park tour, and you can see everything. You really go into every aspect of production and tasting with us. So our distillery, there's really not anything that's off limits. And, obviously for more info, 1423, there are peeps out there in most of the countries in Europe. And obviously, Mads, yourself is a huge, huge resource for the rum community worldwide. So, big up you and everything that you've done for the rum world. And, I appreciate this format and this platform, and, grateful for putting it all together, and obviously for everybody for joining. So, thank you so much. It means a lot for us as a small little distillery in St. Catherine, Jamaica, to be talking to so many different people worldwide right now.
Thank you so much, Zan. Thank you for joining us tonight. It was it was a pleasure.
It was fun, man. And are there any other questions? You guys got anything?
I actually think we are pretty ready to wrap it up. I've got no questions. We are we are on schedule with the questions. Yeah.
Awesome. So Mads, after all that, what was your favorite, dude?
I have to say, of the aged ones, my favorite was the Madeira. That's for me was the most complex and flavorful aged expression. And well, I can't decide between the white ones. I love them all, but the VPE was definitely something else.
Yeah, it's fun just to have just to really as a representation of the highest ester. So now I'm seeing the comments again now that we're off of the shared screen. So thank you everybody for being so engaging as well. That's really, really cool.
And people are writing 109. All right, I think it's time for us to make the draw to find out who won the rum and the book. So I have to go on Instagram and see how many participated. We have a lot of pictures.
No, it's really Well, it's really cool because I see.
I have this one. A lot. The profile. I don't know. Maybe the guy who posted it can see that is his picture, but it's a profile called Rum to Me. I will just make a screenshot and contact you after the tasting, and you are the winner of a port finish.
Yay!
Yay! And we will make a trip to Facebook now under the Romhatten.dk hashtag, and Henrik Kjøller is the winner of a Caribbean rum, the book. Yeah.
Yay!
Great.
Awesome.
Congratulations to the winners, and thank you again, Zan, for joining us. And thank you
thanks for having me, man.
1423, and yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today.
I'll see you when I get to Copenhagen the next time.
I hope to see you soon in person.
I can't wait, dude. I can't wait. Cheers.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.